Ever since I did my review last year of the Garmin Dashcam Mini, I've been bombarded with requests to do other dashcam reviews, and people have tried sending me dashcams to do reviews of, and up until now, I've either refused or sent back every single one of them because, well, frankly, they weren't that good, and I didn't want to do a review of something that I didn't like. So, up until now, that's been the case, but a couple of weeks ago, somebody sent me this. This is the Eachpai X100 dual camera dashcam. And this dashcam is really designed for Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, taxi drivers, people who need to record not only what's going on in front of them on the road, but also what's going on inside of the car. It's not a dash camera I would need for my uses because I'm not an Uber driver, but I think for people who are, this is actually a really good deal because, like I say, it's only $99 on Amazon, and it comes in a really nice box. It's really well packaged. It comes with two different types of mounts. It also comes with extra set of adhesives in case you ever need to move it around. And of course, it comes with the obligatory 12-volt cigarette lighter power adapter. The power input on the camera is actually a USB mini, so you can really power this with any 5-volt, 2-amp USB power supply. And while this does not come with a hardwire kit, you can't hardwire it directly into your car, there are third-party hardwire kits available for like $10 on Amazon, and I'll include a link to one of those below. So you can hardwire this into your car. Unfortunately, this dash cam, it doesn't have a parking mode like most dash cams do. And what that basically means is once you turn the car off, this thing will shut down. So if somebody tries breaking into your car or rams into you in a parking lot, you're not going to know with this. Additionally, this dash camera does not have GPS, so it's not going to log your location and speed. And quite frankly, I prefer dash cameras that don't log my speed. It does, however, have a port right here, a GPS port for an optional GPS unit that you can run the wire to, and I don't know where you hide it, but you hide it somewhere, presumably down there. So if you really want GPS, you can get it. It's an additional item to add on to this, but as is, it does not have that. On the right-hand side are all of the buttons for controlling the menu and changing the different views and things like that. The cameras themselves, they're identical cameras. They're both 1080p, 30 frames per second, 150-degree field of view, which is quite wide. I'm going to talk more about that later. And they also have, you can see here, little tiny infrared emitters. Now, the camera on the front, the emitters here aren't actually plugged to anything because you don't want to emit infrared going forward. But for inside the car at night, it does have these little things that will, you don't see it, but the camera sees it, so it shows up. And I'll show more of that later. Anyway, I've already got the sticker mount on the windshield of this car here, and it's really pretty simple to put it back on. You just kind of have to fidget with it and just slide it on in. Okay, so let's take a look at some sample footage. Now, the first thing to note is that the footage you're seeing here is, of course, third generation, as it always is when you're watching something on YouTube. The first generation footage would have been the footage that came directly off of the SD card. The second generation was what came out of Final Cut Pro after I edited this video, and the third generation is what you're seeing now after YouTube recompressed it. So, it's not 100% as good as the original, but it is pretty darn close. Now, like I said before, this camera has two 150-degree field of view lenses on it. And honestly, 150 degrees is a little bit too wide, I think, especially for a 1080p resolution camera. And also it has an issue, well, you may notice that this camera was mounted fairly far away from my rearview mirror. Normally, you would want the camera mounted as center as possible in the car. Not only does that just give you, a better direct line without the windshield curvature affecting anything, but also it just keeps the dash camera out of view. I usually like to mount mine behind the mirror so I don't have to see it. With a 150-degree field of view, however, that becomes a problem because you can see things. The field of view will pick up this instrument cluster behind the mirror. It picks up my toll tag. So I had to move this thing a good, looks like maybe 9 inches away from the center. And even then, you can still see my toll tag kind of poking through there. Additionally, because of the wide field of view, we pick up a lot of the right side A-pillar. We're picking up a lot more of the dashboard than we would really want. I think that 1080p should be a 130-degree field of view to cut a lot of that out and allow you to put the camera more in center. But it does capture a little bit more on the sides, and that can help you in certain situations. So it is what it is. Now, the interior 150-degree field of view is actually really good because this camera is quite close to the occupants of the car, so you need a very wide angle lens in order to capture everybody sitting in here. So that's fine. As far as image quality goes, on the interior, it looks perfectly good. The infrared lights that light up at night, they do a really good job, but for some reason it makes everything purple. I don't really know why it's so purple. You'd think in software they'd be able to kind of fix that. Luckily, when this thing is operating at night, you do not see the purple. You don't see any light at all. I've tried looking at this thing at night and I don't see even a glow coming from those LEDs. So don't worry, you're not lighting up your cabin purple. It's completely invisible to the human eye. Exterior-wise, the quality of the recording is actually pretty good, especially compared to my other 1080p dash cameras. It's only recording at 10 megabits a second, which is about as low as you can go with 1080p, but nevertheless, I don't see hardly any artifacting in this video. On my other dash cameras at 1080p that also have a very similar bit rate, I see a lot of artifacting, especially when trees go by, but I don't get so much of that with this dash camera, so it is actually doing a really good job of it. The image is a little bit soft. It's not the sharpest 1080p image ever, and I don't know if that's due to just the software itself or if it's because of the wide-angle lens. It's a little bit hard to tell, but it's not blurry. It's just a little soft, and it's perfectly fine. You can still, read most of what you need to read. Now, the other thing about being, 150-degree field of view is it also means that you're taking more visual data and compressing it into that 1080p resolution. So it does make it just a teeny bit harder to read license plates and signs because you have a little bit less resolution to deal with, but it's not a huge difference and it still works just fine. The colors, the dynamic range all look really good. I'm quite happy with the image on this. I'm going to say that the image on this dash camera is as good as in any other 1080p dash camera that I've seen. The only other issue that I would have with the image quality is the fact that, well, there's no polarizing filter available for this camera. You would probably have to make your own, and I'm not sure how you'd actually get it on there, but I've said this before, but I think every dash camera should have a polarizing filter because you can get really, really bad glare off of your dashboard at certain times of the day. In this footage here, it's not horrible, but it's still there, but a polarizing filter would probably get rid of all of it. So the image quality would be significantly improved if there was a polarizing filter available. Okay, so now let's talk about the camera settings and all the different modes and things. As I mentioned at the beginning, the buttons for all of this are on the right-hand side. And this creates a bit of a problem when you're in the driver's seat because I can't see any of the buttons. I have to usually get into the passenger seat in order to fidget with any of the settings, but the main issue here is that, well, all dash cams have a button that you press if you witness something. So say you witness a crash and you want to save that recording. You press a button on the dash camera and it'll save that recording, usually 60 seconds or so, to permanent storage on the SD card so that it won't get overwritten. This has that, but the problem is that it's one of these buttons on the side. You actually use the menu up button over here to set, a save record mode. first of all, you have to remember which button it is. Secondly, you can't see that button from the driver's seat. And thirdly, the buttons are so close together that it's really hard to tell which one's which. So in the heat of the moment, it's pretty unlikely you're going to be able to reach over here and press the right button. You'll probably end up pressing the wrong thing. So that's a little bit of a beef that I have. I do wish that the incident button were on the front somewhere like it is with most other dash cameras, so you could easily go, oh my God, something happened, boom, press the button. But anyway, not a huge deal because honestly, you know, if you've got a big enough memory card, I've got a 64 gig card in here, so that's hours and hours of recording. So it will be a long time before any footage gets overwritten. So if you want to get into the menu to change some settings around, you just press the menu button. It takes you into the menu, and you just use the arrows. It's pretty self-explanatory to you know, scroll around. Oops. Well, like I say, it's very hard to do from the driver's seat because you can't tell what you're pressing. I'm not going to go into all the different settings here because they're really self-explanatory, and honestly, all of the defaults are pretty good. The only thing that I had to change, there is one called rear cam mirror. So take a look at this footage here. Do you see anything wrong with it? Well, what's wrong with it is that I don't live in the UK. The steering wheel is on the left side of this car, but in this video it's on the right side, and that's because by default it is mirroring this rear view camera. I don't know why it defaults to that. I mean, I guess it kind of makes it easier to set up because you're looking at yourself like in the mirror on here where, you know, you wave your hand to the right, it goes to the right. But in reality it should be inverted, right? So you need to go into the rear cam mirror mode and just turn it on. Now, here's the strange thing. That setting is backwards. When mirror mode is on, it should be doing the wrong thing, which is basically flipping the image. When it's off, it should be normal. But they've got it backwards here. I don't know if it was a Chinese translation error or what, but it is what it is. So just go into there, turn it on, and then your recordings will look correct with the steering wheel on the correct side of the car, and all the text and anything else won't be flipped sideways. Now the camera does have 3 modes that you put it in. Normally it's in video mode. That's what it defaults to when your car powers up. If you hold down the menu button for about, I don't know, 2 seconds or so, it goes into camera mode. Now this can be put into camera mode where you take still photos. Honestly, I cannot think of a single reason why you would ever want to do this. The sensor in this camera is only 2 megapixels. That's a very low resolution sensor. But when you go to the menu settings, you can set the resolution of the photo to 5 megapixels all the way up to 12 megapixels. I have no idea. It's just scaling up the 2 megapixel image to fake these larger megapixels. It's not going to be good quality. There's really no reason you would ever want to use photo mode, but it's there. Now the next mode on the camera is a playback mode. So once again, you just hold down the menu button for a couple of seconds. It'll take you to playback mode. And this is where you can review all of the footage on the camera, look at everything that it's recorded. And that's fine. But the one thing that this camera does not have that it really kind of needs, well, all dash cameras need it, is Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, some way of wirelessly being able to access all these videos on your phone. Because say you're out there and you witness a wreck, the cops arrive, and they want a copy of your dash cam footage. Well, with this dash camera, there's pretty much no way to do that without popping the SD card out, taking it to a laptop or something that can read the SD card, and then copying the files manually. Ideally, you have a mobile app for the dash camera, and you just connect wirelessly to it and then download the files, and you can share them with whoever you want. This doesn't have that, and so that really is kind of the one major flaw with this camera, but you know, like I say, for $99 you can't complain too much. But it is the one, I'm going to say, important feature. I'm not going to call it a critical feature because you can still get those files off there if you really have to. Now when you do load the SD card into a computer, it's pretty straightforward. There's basically a folder that contains all the video, and inside there is a folder that contains all of the incident video. That is the video that is permanently saved either by the impact sensor that this camera has. So it does have a G-force sensor, so if somebody rams into you, the camera knows to automatically save that recording to the permanent storage on the SD card. Similarly, you can press, like I said before, the up arrow button on the side, and that will also tag that video as going into permanent storage. So that's what that folder is for. And then the other files are just the regular files that loop around once the memory card is full, and it'll overwrite the old ones. So they're temporary footage. There's an A version and a B version of each one. A is for the front view camera, and the B is the interior camera. Now it ends up there actually is a 4K version of this exact same camera. The 4K version has a 4K forward-facing camera. The interior rear-facing camera is still 1080p, but it's only $50 more, and it comes with the separate GPS unit, and it has built-in Wi-Fi, and there's a mobile app, so you can download the videos to your phone wirelessly. The problem with the 4K version is that the 4K footage is only recorded at 24 frames per second. This records at 30 frames per second, and 30 frames per second really is the minimum frame rate that you want in a dash camera. A lot of the newer, higher-end dash cameras, they'll record up to 60 frames per second. For me, I think 24 is way too low. I think frame rate is just as important as resolution, at least sometimes. Oftentimes, resolution is more important. If you need to read a license plate from a distance, then that 4K may, be what you need. But 24 frames per second at 4K is not acceptable. So I would not recommend the 4K version despite all the other stuff that it comes with. I would still stick with this. So, in conclusion, $99, this is a fantastic little dash cam. Easy to plug in, easy to get going. I mean, I had this thing set up and going probably in 2.5 minutes. It works reliably. I haven't had any problems with it. The video footage quality is good. The audio quality, it's mediocre, but then again, all you need is enough audio quality out of these to hear the screams of people when the car's flipping over, so it doesn't really matter. But I recommend it. It's the Eachpai X100. I'll include a link to it below. And once again, as always, thanks for watching.